Joining us now is Credit Suisse's top shareholder. He is David Herro of Harris Associates. David, we spoke on Monday, and your position was very clear in regards to the chief executive and his battle with the chairman. The CEO now resigned after being ousted. Are you still committed to Credit Suisse?
Well, we are committed to Credit Suisse because we think that the organization and the strengths of the business go far beyond the weak chairman and the poor decision-making by the board of directors. What's beneath the corporate board, the board of directors, is a very solid and vastly improved company, largely because of the efforts of Mr. Thiam. And so this is why we wanted him to stay. And, as I mentioned, earlier in the week, that basically Mr. Thiam had to repair the damages that were made by the previous managements, which were presided over by the existing chairman who stayed. And this is the dichotomy of the whole situation, is that the person who presided over the creation of the mess stayed, and the person who cleaned up the mess left. But what has left is a much, much stronger and better company than when Mr. Thiam came, and it's because of his efforts and his leadership.
But David Herro, will you cut your stake in Credit Suisse?
We're never comment on trading. We certainly think the company is less valuable than with Mr. Thiam. But however, we believe the business is still very, very attractive and very attractively priced. And Mr. Gottenstein is a very capable executive. Now, of course, our worry will be that you have this new CEO who's capable and talented, but above him sits a chairman who is less than capable and talented, and a board that seems to just mimic whatever, just follows blindly whatever he says. And as someone who's personally been misled by the chairman, this is going to make it difficult for the new CEO. The new CEO, on the one hand, what's below him, he inherited a very good and improved bank. But above him, he's going to have to deal with a board that doesn't function for the purpose of creating value for shareholders. So at this stage, we're happy with our holding in Credit Suisse. And we think it still offers great potential. But this shows the need for changes at the board of directors. And I'm listening to some of the Swiss press, and the chairman says, all the shareholders are behind him. There wasn't one shareholder who came out publicly in support of him. So, I don't know where he's coming from. And he's going to see that most shareholders, this is going to get put to a vote. This is going to get put to a vote very shortly. And we're going to see if he survives that vote. But I think for the good of the company, the chairman should step down as well. And
so, David Herro, have you?
Yeah.
Have you been speaking to other shareholders, and are you now going to try and remove the chairman, Urs Rohner?
We do think that of course, we've been sharing our thoughts. We've been sharing our thoughts with other shareholders, and every shareholder I've spoken to seems to. It's, some people don't tell you, and we don't push. We want to know their thoughts. And of course, people know our position. Our position is very, very public. And absolutely, we will be voting against Mr. Rohner. And we believe, for the good of the company, other shareholders should vote against Mr. Rohner. And further, if Mr. Rohner really was concerned about the company, and if he really loved the company, he should step down and resign. That's what he should do.
Will you take, David Herro, legal steps to try and get him removed?
We're going to examine all options. We're going to do what it takes to protect our investment and to protect our shareholders. And we think there is great potential in Credit Suisse, and we would hate to see it ruined by a chairman who is not on the same page of shareholder value creation as we are.
Do you think the new chief executive is on the same page as you in terms of strategy?
I have met him, and I think he is on the same page in terms of strategy. He has a very good reputation. He's done a very good job at the Swiss Universal Bank. Recall that was almost made public a few years ago, and he would have been the CEO of the publicly listed company. I think he's talented. I think he is capable. But I do fear the fact that he has to work with a chairman who, just from what I've dealt with, and what he's done to Mr. Thiam, right as Mr. Thiam has repaired the bank, pushed him out. And,
but, David,
go ahead.
No, continue. No, are you concerned that actually the new chief executive will take the bank in a different direction, that it will be less focused on Asia?
I don't believe he will. Yeah, I don't believe he will because he's been part of the team, and I think he could see the success that the bank has had and the direction that Tidjane has put the bank in the right, the direction he's pushed the bank into. So, he's part of the executive board, part of the management team, and I think clearly he's able to see the success of Thiam's strategy. And I do believe he will stick with the strategy. We haven't spoken with him since he's become the new CEO, but we have met with him, many times beforehand.
Have you spoken to the chairman, Urs Rohner, in the last couple of weeks?
And we've communicated last week. The last I spoke with him was when he denied that he or anyone from the board leaked the story Friday.
Will you try and reach out? I mean, is there any insight into how this has been done? Did you get a call from anyone discussing this before?
No. They didn't believe it was important to communicate with their largest shareholder, evidently.
What are you doing, David Herro, today? Will you fly to Zurich? Will you try and speak to the chair? Are you speaking to the chief executive?
No, I'm not. I don't plan on flying to Zurich. What I plan on doing is at some point we have to talk with Mr. Gartenstein. And at this stage, there's not a lot that can be done. But, we have to protect our investment. And to protect our investment and our shareholders means that we have to make sure that there is a board in place looking after the shareholders' interest, the company's interest, the employees' interest. We do not believe Credit Suisse today has a chairman and a board in place that is mindful of their duties to the company and to the owners, to all the stakeholders. We do not believe that Credit Suisse today has a board that is looking after the stakeholders, and we think this is a very, very valuable asset. And so, we will take steps to do what we can do. And at this stage, I don't know exactly what we can do, but when we find out what we can do, we will take these steps to make sure that we will do our fiduciary duty to our shareholders and make sure that there's a board in place that represents the best interests of the stakeholders.
David Herro, I know you have to go, but one final question. Are you looking to replace the chairman or the whole board?
Well, that is a good question because we don't know exactly how the whole board really panned out. But I think for now, the chairman should be replaced. The chairman should be replaced. In fact, as I said, if he really cares about the organization, if he really cared about Credit Suisse, he would step down as chairman because this would really bring stability and it would allow Mr. Gartenstein the opportunity for a true fresh start. But as long as Mr. Rohner is there will be doubt and questions on, who's going to be the next one to be pushed out. And so I think the best thing for the organization would be, and I'm surprised that when the board made this change, they did say he's leaving in 2021. That's not good enough. He's got to leave before that. He shouldn't leave immediately.
David Herro, thank you so much for your time. As always, he is Chief Investment Officer at Harris Associates and, of course, a top Credit Suisse shareholder.